We are on the air.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Digital Dish. This is our third week, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Lisa Beyer. A little bit about me. I am the Hispanic marketing evangelist for Boom Social. So I work with Kim Garst, and I also teach social media in Europe, and hopefully start teaching in the fall or sometime in the fall at the University of Florida. So, and now I'll pass it over to my co-host.
Thanks, Kathy. So for anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Lisa Beyer. I teach social media management at University of Florida. I wrote the book Social PR Secrets, and I see some of my students here. So namaste to everybody. And Kathy, speaking of your students, we should invite your students to be part of the Digital Dish next week.
Yeah, I'll definitely, the thing with my students is it's really interesting because they're all scattered throughout the world. So some are in Africa, some are in Japan. There's a few here. So I'll send the invite. I don't know if they'll show up.
Right. It would be fun to see them.
Yeah, but at least they can watch it on replay. So definitely sharing it out with them. So
that would be great. So hi, everybody. So today we picked the topic of social media measurement. And with everything happening, Kathy, all these, like even since our last show last week, so many announcements have been made. And now there's so many more things to measure, figure out the KPI, figure out the ROI. I mean, where do we begin when it comes to social media measurement?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it just seems, I don't know why, but I feel like in the last couple months, things have changed. I mean, things change fast in social. We know that, but it's just in the last couple months, it's been like, I don't know. I feel like it's just been accelerated. Do you feel the same way?
Oh, totally. I feel like the landscape has gone, we were kind of like going like this, and now we just went like this, and we're like way up here, and it's going so fast. And I think this is going to be, it seems like, yeah, you said it, social media changes every year, but this is like, I think, going to be a huge year of change. It has been.
It's just accelerated. Gosh, I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, especially with the fact that we're talking about KPIs and metrics and analytics. There's so many schools of thought. I love, for example, Ted Rubin, who, he talks about return on relationship more so than an ROI. I mean, yes, I mean, companies want that ROI. They're going to come eventually telling you, okay, so what is my ROI? But he talks a lot about return on relationship. And I try to listen to what he's saying because I see a lot of value in it. When I was at the conference, I got to talk to this lady called Gaby Castellanos, who's probably new to a lot of people. But she's kind of a social media maven, let's say, in the Latin American social media world. And she talked about, you might have a huge amount of followers, but that doesn't mean that they're engaged. The key is going to be the engagement and the relationship. So it goes back to that thing that, the same thing that Ted Rubin talks about. So it's hard. I mean, this is a hard conversation to have because, if I'm working with a client, they're going to want to know their ROI. They're going to want to know really what did they, what are the impressions and everything.
And how do you measure return on relationship? I mean, it's so gray, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a great concept. It's
a great concept.
Fantastic concept. The measurement of it is just, a little baffling.
Right. It is. So some of these new platforms that have just been introduced in the past 12 months, Periscope is one. How do you measure Periscope? So just kind of like go through and say, what are some of our ideas and concepts on measurement? How do you recommend measuring Periscope?
That's the thing. For example, the metrics are still not the best.
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting your metrics from the app, it shows you retention, which is a very skewed number because it's, people jump from one place to another, but then they jump back. And the retention number is usually like not very, very reliable. It'll show you number of viewers, number of hearts. I mean, it's all relative, is heart really a like or, because you can tap the screen and keep tapping it. I think the limit's 500 hearts and then you have to come in and out. So those are the metrics that Periscope, the app, gives you. But then there's a company called Fullscope.tv that does more media analytics, and they'll show you other data, like who is the most engaged person in your scope, which is a value to you. So they'll show you different types of analytics. But I think when it comes to the ROI and the metrics in live video, it's still fairly new.
It is.
Fairly new.
So if you're a social media manager trying to convince your boss to do live video in some way, shape, or form, the boss is going to be, how do I know it's working? How do we know it's working? So I guess these basics are what we have to start with.
Yeah, I mean, really basics. I've had conversations with brands and they wanted to use Periscope, and I say, well, I want you to be aware that, you might not get, I mean, sometimes people want to get these huge numbers in their Periscopes, and it's not even real, it's like, you might not have that number of followers on Periscope. So what I do tell brands is, if you have, for example, if most of your audience is on Facebook, because let's say you're some type of brand related to family or mommy or something like that, or if you're a brand in Latin America and most of your people are going to be on Facebook, then that's probably where you're going to get the most eyeballs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I totally agree. So we have a question from somebody in my class, actually. She's asking, or I'm not, they're asking, what do you think is the future of social in the sense of how rapidly it's growing? And that's kind of a loaded question. I mean, it's the future of social right now. In my opinion, we're just getting started in the revolution. And it's so hard to predict where everything is going to fall. But I mean, one prediction I feel pretty good about is that Facebook isn't going anywhere. Facebook's going to continue to dominate as look at all the announcements.
I agree with you. I mean, they're putting so much money and so many resources behind everything they're doing. I mean, F8 conference just blew my mind. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg doing the live video and talking about everything that's coming down their 10-year view of what's coming, VR, AR. I mean, Facebook is not going anywhere. And when I was at Hispanic Size, they had a panel on Generation Z. So like the next generation after the millennials, the younger kids. And of course, none of them are on Facebook, but it doesn't mean that they won't be.
Exactly. Yeah, I think when it comes to measurement and Facebook, what I love about Facebook is that it really does give you the most robust way to measure and prove ROI in so many different ways, with their insights and ad manager and all the different things that you could put together. So I think, the live video is kind of this gray area that's growing, but you can't ignore. And Facebook is more of the hard black and white where you can really target and measure.
Well, and that's one of the questions also. I mean, I don't want to steer away from Facebook because that's a great place to start. But we eventually need to talk about Snapchat too.
Oh, we have to.
What are the metrics? I mean, how do you measure? How do you measure that? Because that's like huge, But on the Facebook front, I mean, I love that you're able to look at your analytics. I love that and metrics on Facebook are pretty clear when it comes to Facebook, regular Facebook, not the live video.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's a conversation. Someone wrote here, sorry, how often should brands track KPI and ROI, from Lauren Milano? I think that's a great question. I think that's really going to depend on the type of company you have and your social media policies, or whether you're running campaigns constantly, or, I don't think that there's a set rule. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I agree. I don't think there's a set rule, and I think it depends on the business's goals and objectives. So I like to recommend, a minimum would be quarterly. Monthly would probably be a good idea to definitely run reports and make sure that you're in line with whatever the KPIs are and you're matching the ROI so you can adjust. But as far as for tracking, so I would say monthly, quarterly, and then annual, do kind of definitely a complete, okay, are we on the right track? But it's such an evolving process that you always have to keep measuring. Daily is overkill, unless you're really looking at some.
Have someone working that job.
Even to do weekly. I really try not to look at the analytics unless we just launched a very specialized campaign and I'm just trying to get an idea. It is a good idea to look at the metrics, like when you first launch something new and you just want to get an immediate impression of, okay, how is this working? And do we need to make immediate adjustments? And then once it gets to a certain point, you kind of can keep it going. Yeah. But should we switch to Snapchat? Because Facebook is pretty cut and dry. And I think that if you're doing Facebook, you have what it takes to measure and prove your ROI and set your KPIs. But Snapchat's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. And I have to say, Joe, like Twitter too, Twitter Analytics.
Right. Yeah.
Great tool. But it's there. Like, it's already there. It's already available to everyone, So I think Snapchat, gosh, how do you measure the ROI and the KPIs in Snapchat?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, for me, it seems like Snapchat is more of that branding type of umbrella where it's not going to be the hardcore measurement, and you have to really decide for yourself as a brand how you're going to measure, because the metrics that they do offer, they disappear when the stories, I mean, it's only per day that you're looking at, and there's no, like how Facebook and Twitter has, there's not a Snapchat analytics, and I'm sure they're going to eventually come out with something. Nick Cicero with Del Mondo
Oh
agency,
yeah.
he offers to brands, but very select brands. It's not like you can just look at his pricing and sign up. You have to request a demo, and it's only available to select brands. But I mean, there are third parties out there like Nick that are
Mm-hmm.
offering analytics to, I think, the brands that are really investing deeply into it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that it's so ephemeral. Like it just disappears. And if you're a brand or if you're, a smaller brand or whatever, and you're trying to figure out the KPIs and the ROI of Snapchat, that's a tough one. That is really a tough one. And yeah, I knew Nick offered this, and I know he works with bigger brands. Obviously, he was at the Shorty Awards on Monday.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he was one of the sponsors. I mean,
yeah,
imagine Del Mondo has grown so much, and it's
yeah,
really about Snapchat. I mean, that's their
yeah.
forte.
He was the guest this week for our class talking about Snapchat
Oh,
analytics. So we were lucky enough to have him as a guest. But yeah, I mean, he's way ahead of the game. He's been way ahead of the game. So he knows what's going on. But meanwhile, not everybody else does.
no, no. There's someone asking here for companies, is it worth it to have Snapchat? I don't see any advantages that come from having Snapchat. K-Baz, I think it's going to depend on the company. I mean, if I was a hospital, maybe not. I mean, they could still use it. I'm not going to say no, but I think it works really well for certain types of brands. I love watching the stories. I love watching some of the people and how they're really using this tool to storytell. So, who's to say that a brand can't use it in the same way? It's going to depend, I think, on the brand.
One good step I think that Snapchat just made that brands can really embrace would be brands that are having events, and they can take advantage of that geo filter
Oh
and
yeah.
create their own geo filter for an event. And that way, the people that are they're making it available to the people that are on Snapchat to, why not give that automatic? They want to use the geo filter of the event that they're at, and why not brand it that way? So I think that's kind of an easy way for brands to jump in. And with Snapchat, it's not like, let's say you just did it for your events. It's going to be worth it just to have a
Yeah.
Snapchat account and just to use it to promote your events or get that branding in play.
Definitely. I saw this at Hispanic Size. Like there were people that had their own geofilters during the
Yeah,
event. I was like, that is great for personal branding. I mean, it's
brilliant,
fantastic. I was like, do it.
brilliant. And from what I've heard, it's not, you submit it and you can pretty much get it approved pretty quickly. I'm sure that's going to change. And like everything, it's like this is the window of time to really take advantage of utilizing this. It's not going to be free forever.
It's not
You
going
know,
to be free forever.
not
That's what I tell people with live video on Facebook. Is like the bump that you're getting in your algorithm with live video right now is free. You
right,
must
right.
do it.
Yeah, yeah, take advantage of it. And that is the advantage of being, like we've talked about this before, being an early adapter of these platforms or these new features. Like the live video on Facebook is a new feature that, a lot of brands don't even know what's happening. They're just catching up. And for the brands that are keeping up, take advantage of these new features, right?
Definitely. And to that point, I don't want to veer too far away from Snapchat. I definitely want us to come back to
Yeah,
that
yeah,
because I
yeah.
know we're both fans of the of the app. But Facebook, they had their F8 conference and they announced that they were opening their API, their Facebook Live API, which was one of their biggest announcements in my personal view. And just today, they had a press release saying it's open. And it talked about ways that publishers, they use the word publishers. So I'm still trying to figure out who is, what that means within the Facebook world,
Mm-hmm.
how publishers can use it. But few of the things that they have now is that you're going to be able to do live video on Facebook, not only from your smartphone. You're going to be able to do like amazing, amazing, very well produced live video on Facebook. This is huge. You're going to be able to obviously do it from a drone or from another type of camera. And they're going to incorporate something where you're going to be able to kind of do live polls, and you're going to be able to kind of like create more engagement with your live viewers, and also control, do like a comment control. So like if there's trolls or anything, you're going to be able to kind of sanitize that, which I think is going to be really good for brands.
It is, and it's personalizing the whole experience. And I think that's really what we've been saying in social media: personalize it, quality content. And now this has taken the clutter of the quality content to a whole new level. And the brands that are going to rise to these opportunities are the ones that are really going to set themselves apart, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier to measure. If you start now, the whole thing back to measurement, if you start now early, and you're doing the little baby steps of measuring, then it's going to be easier for you as a brand to, it's going to continue to get more complicated. And you're learning as the platform grows or as the features of measuring grow versus waiting a year from now and trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
It's complicated. You're going to end up investing more, in my opinion, as a brand. If you don't start something early, you're going to end up playing catch up, and it's going to cost you so much more in everything. Brand equity.
Brand equity, completely.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and you can't really put a price on that.
No, and it's just that catching up. I mean, and we see it all the time with different platforms. You know, some brands are more conservative than others, and then they play catch up. But it's costly if you look at it. It's really costly at the end of the day.
We have a question here. Madeline, for a small business, what is the best social platform to focus on? So that's kind of a loaded question too, but I would say, wherever your audience is, right?
Yeah.
It really depends. If your audience is on Facebook. I mean, starting out on Snapchat, if your audience is not necessarily on Snapchat, even though basically it's free to start out on all of these social media platforms for a brand standpoint, it's time and resources too.
Yeah.
So you have to, and when you're measuring everything, that's also, Kathy, I think what clients forget, businesses forget, is that in your measurement, you really need to put in how much time and resources you're investing as a company, and what is your ROI of your social media.
Completely agree with you. And I think people forget that. They're like, well, it's free to be on Facebook and Twitter and this and that. Well, there needs to be a human actually, most of the time, God willing, creating content, not just a bot automating whatever it is that you're posting. But yeah, I mean, there is obviously, a monetary, I mean, there's definitely got to be ROI. So
right, and add in if you're paying an agency, add in if you're paying a full-time employee, add in if you're, all the tools that are the paid to have tools.
Mm-hmm. And and I think I still think it happens where the intern's been stuck with the social media because they're interns and sometimes they don't get paid.
No
that
offense,
makes me
interns.
very sad.
Yeah.
No offense, interns, but you guys
we love you.
We love you. You guys should get paid stipends or whatever. But anyway, but I do think that I think companies are starting to realize that they need to hire actually people. Right, it could be right off of college. That's totally fine. But they have to hire people full time to do this because social media is a full-time job. So
it is. It's a full-time job, even from a personal standpoint.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah. I mean, even to do your personal social media, there's not enough hours in the day to really track everything. Mm-hmm. But Kathy, that brings up a good topic: tools. So, what are some of your favorite social media measurement tools, or just social media tools in general? Do you have any of your faves?
I mean, I obviously use the Twitter analytics, I look at Facebook and everything. I don't really have any paid services right now. If I get to that point, I would love to. But, I've definitely recommended like Crimson Hexagon for big brands that can afford something of that nature because they're very robust. But yeah, I mean, as far as tools go, I think it's got to depend on the size of your company and your budget.
Right. So I personally love, and it's free, Google Analytics.
Oh yeah.
And looking at Google Analytics to really track like referring traffic and, really see who's coming to your site or your blog from social. and then some paid, then you can also compare the Facebook insights to what Google Analytics is saying. You can take Twitter and compare, which there's always a discrepancy. So
Oh,
it's so frustrating, but you just have to kind of decide what is important to measure and just measure that, right?
yeah. I mean, if you really thought you could measure everything, you'd be crazy. That no one has that type of, time. There's got to be set parameters as to what success looks like to you. What is a good ROI for my campaign or for whatever it is that you're doing.
Exactly. A couple others that I like. I like Sprout Social
Mhm.
and Buffer, because Buffer gives the analytics within the whole
Mhm.
platform. And I just actually signed up for the beta of True Conversion, TRU
Ooh, that
Conversion.
sounds interesting. True
Yeah,
conversion.
definitely check that out. And you can sign up for the beta. I think they give 3 months. Actually, I can give you he gave me a free 3 month to give away. So I'll give you one of
Yeah, I'd
mine to
love to
check.
try it out. So
But I mean, the whole word conversion, that's the key word, right? With measurement. I mean,
yeah.
that's what everybody wants to know is, okay, how is this converting into an email sign up, a customer, a sale, or something?
Yeah.
Nava said Buffer. Nava works with me, and we like
Oh,
live on
a
Buffer,
buffer.
literally. Yeah, we love Buffer. Here's a question. Oh, Nava is asking, is it important when starting with the client to be on the same page in regards to what ROI for social media management is? How do you do that?
Oh,
I mean,
extremely important. I mean, and I think a lot of us do this, and I've heard Brian Fanzo talk a lot about it, but talking about with your client, what does success look like? What do you want to gain from this? Because you have to be clear. Especially some of us that work in live video with it being so new, people don't know what to expect. People don't know. They're like, I want this. We're like, well, maybe that is impossible. So being very clear, I think, being very clear as to what the company, the client wants to I don't know, accomplish.
accomplish.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
Accomplish.
if it's realistic.
Yeah, is it even realistic? Yeah, I want 1 million people in my Facebook Live. Well, do you have those kinds of numbers on Facebook? I mean, so
Right, right. Yeah, I love the question of, they're looking at, okay, so we have this Facebook page and we have this traffic coming from Facebook to our website, but we're really not seeing any direct results in sales from Facebook. Somebody signing up, and it's like, you really can't look at social media that way. It's not that, kind of push the button and press buy thanks to Facebook type of thing. It's this whole journey that has to happen.
it's a whole
And
journey.
that,
There's retargeting that needs to happen. It means so many things that need to happen to create that sale. It's not just like, oh, they saw my website, they're going to buy from me. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's that's a great question, Noah. That is a great question. I think there needs to be something agreed upon, especially if you're a consultant. I think, when you write your contract and everything, you have to be very clear as to, what is going to be measured and what the client wants to accomplish.
And I guess how often they
Mhm.
want to measure something, that has to be agreed. Because if a client is expecting on the spot reports, like, oh, can I have a report on this out of nowhere? I think when you're going to start working with a client or you're going to be the social media manager, it's important to say, okay, how often are we going to do reporting so that everybody's on the same page with the reporting and when we're going to measure it, what point. I mean, I always like to recommend, just to do it at the end of each month, to look at that, so that we're not looking at, somebody could look at a 30-day count from, let's say, the 10th, on the 10th of the month back. And that's, if you're looking at it all different date ranges, you're not really comparing apples to apples. There's not really a set way to compare. So, I mean, that's what I always like to
No, I
recommend.
agree. I think that's smart. You do it, calendar like 1 to day 30, whatever. So yeah, I mean, and if you have a campaign, if you're running a special campaign, obviously you would run the metrics for that specific campaign, depending on the length. But yeah, I mean, and I want to get into the whole idea of impressions,
Yes.
because that is in some ways, a loaded term. you know?
It is. It is. It is. I mean, impressions can be just one way to look at something, but it can also be just completely taken into. I mean, it's when I see reports from some third party, I'm not going to name any names, companies that you can do advertising with, and the reports are kind of white labeled,
Yeah.
and you don't really know where the information is coming from. Like with Google Analytics, it's coming, it's Google Analytics. Like that's the true report. But impressions can be so subjective,
Yeah, and
right?
what do they really mean? Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I love, like for example, one of the things when I mentioned when I do my talks is that I was part of a stream team that Applebee's put together for a campaign they did when they launched their new menu, and what I was told from the metrics is that there was 1 billion impressions, and I think that's fantastic, and I use it in my talks, but I'm like, what does that really mean? What does that really mean? We didn't get 1 billion people to go to Applebee's that day, obviously.
Right. It doesn't mean it's 1 billion visitors to a website, and depending on where you're getting the impressions data from, it's different. It's calculated different.
Yeah, it's like, what does that really mean? I mean, yes, I understand there's a certain number of like how many eyeballs saw it, how many people shared it, the spread of the influencers that shared it, blah, 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 blah. But I think we need to be careful too when we measure stuff. So
Definitely, definitely. And then reach too can also be a little bit, it's depending on how reach is actually defined, can be a little bit misleading. So I think that there's all these different ways to make yourself look good. And this is like public relations, is very guilty of this. And do the report that's going to make you look the best versus do the report that's going to give you the information that you're going to actually be able to make business decisions on.
Well, of course,
good
I'm
or
going to
bad.
put the nice metrics on top and then the not
Right?
at the
Yeah.
bottom. But
Yeah. Exactly. But I mean, you also have to kind of, you have to be objective with it, not just give all the good stuff
yeah.
or the stuff that looks good.
And also explain
And
it to your client. If you don't understand it, try to find a way to explain what that is to your client.
define it. Yeah. Maybe even make like a key, this is what impression means to us. This is how we're measuring it. This is what reach means, so that there's almost like a glossary. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's so many people that you're giving reports to that they have no idea what some of these terms mean.
I do have to say, I am glad that in social media, at least we have Google Analytics and we have, Twitter Analytics and everything, because those are defined metrics. But like in PR, there's always the debate about how do you measure in public relations? Right. How do you measure that? We used to, in the olden days, we used to do the AVEs, with the advertising value equivalent, whatever.
Right.
But it's so vast.
It's antiquated. Yeah. I just cleaned out my garage last weekend and I still have clipping books.
Oh God, yes.
You'd cut out the headline and make a clipping book for the client whenever you got media coverage. And I'm like, okay, I can't even brag about this anymore because this is just so outdated, and it's really, some of them are not even 10 years old, but it's just completely, thank God for Google Analytics, and thank God we have better ways to prove that we're sending real referring traffic to a website because of public relations efforts.
Yeah, but it says, Nanava's saying, that's all I did in my first internship. Oh my God, bless her soul. Yeah, the clippings. I mean, you had to measure. Oh God.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you'd scan it and then send a copy to the client and then they put it on their website. But things have changed for the better, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're moving forward. I mean, that's a whole other Barcelona principles and everything. That's a whole other show. But but at least with pure social, I'm glad we have, some tools that are clear, very, very clear. So
yeah. Well, I think we're about out of time. Should we take any more questions, or
maybe 5 minutes of questions and then we'll.
Yeah. Sounds good. So if anybody has any questions that we haven't answered yet, I'm just looking through we missed any.
Let's see.
Oh, here's one. Which social media has the greatest engagement as of right now? Oh. Hayward Miller is asking that.
What? That really depends on so many factors.
Well, okay, so from an organic standpoint, I'm going to say Instagram has the most opportunity. But when you're talking about paid, it's basically pay to play. And if you have quality content, your engagement could be unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, completely.
Twitter also is excellent for engagement. Like which ones would not necessarily be great for engagement?
LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn is,
I love LinkedIn, but
it's getting better.
It's getting better. But I do understand some of the limitations. I'm always going to be on LinkedIn. I'm always going to have a profile and I'm always going to post stuff. But yeah,
Yeah. Oh, see if there's any more. Anybody else have any more questions that we can answer?
Let's see. Maybe not. Well, are
Guess.
you going to Social Media Marketing World?
I wish I was. You know why I don't go to Social Media Marketing World is because I used to do what's now called ClickSee, which started out as search engine strategies. And every year it's the same week as Social Media Marketing
Oh,
World. So I could never go. I was always speaking at
mhm.
search engine strategies for years. And just last year was the first year I didn't do the SES or ClickSee New York. So and it's also my daughter's spring break.
Oh,
It's like the worst possible timing every year, or we're going skiing or something. But it kills me every year to like watch it virtually and be like, I should be there.
uh,
Those are all my friends that are there.
right. It's like
But
this big meeting of all your
yeah,
social media
yeah,
friends.
I highly recommend it. And maybe that's how we can end is just talking about some conferences that we love and that we could recommend. And whoever's watching this
Yeah.
now live or the recorded. So I mean, Social Media Marketing World is one that's incredible.
It's
Like,
incredible. And if anyone can afford the virtual pass, I highly recommend it because you've got Gary Vee, you've got Kim Garst, you've got
yeah,
everyone in social that's like a mastermind.
yeah.
You've got presentations. So yeah, I mean, for the people that can, I know a lot of people here are students, but if you can, definitely look into the virtual pass.
Definitely. Another one that I love is called PubCon, and that's
Yeah.
a blend of social media and search marketing, which is a great blend to learn both worlds and both sides of the brain type of thing. So that takes place in Las Vegas in
Mm-hmm.
October, but they also have regional ones. We just had one in Fort Lauderdale
Oh
in
wow!
February.
I didn't know
It's
they
a
had regional ones.
little bit less expensive. There's one in Austin coming
Mm-hmm.
up. If anybody's watching from Austin, so if you can't go to the big one in Las Vegas, which is it's just, I mean, it's known for speakers are very approachable, helping, everybody helps each other. And the networking that you get when you go to PubCon, I'm sure Social Media Marketing World is very similar, but the networking is incredible. You have
Wow,
relationships that it's like a high school reunion now when I go, every
that's
year. It's
awesome.
like everybody, once you go once and meet everybody, you have to keep going. Here we have a question. Is there any idea on how to go viral or is it more organic? That is the
If
question
we could all
of
answer
the year.
that.
Right. It's kind of like, how do you get on Oprah or can you get me on the front page of the Wall Street Journal?
We
So
could all
it's,
do that one.
yeah. I mean, going viral is typically not a planned thing, I would say.
Mhm.
I mean, it's something that content is created that is really not purposely going to
Mhm.
go viral. And it just happens to like really resonate and work.
And going viral sounds really good, but it's not always the best thing. Like
Yeah.
with the whole, and I don't want to get into politics, but the whole thing that happened here in Gainesville with the lady at the Starbucks yelling at the governor of Florida. I mean, she probably didn't think that, she didn't even know she was being filmed.
Oh, right,
She went
right.
viral
Yeah,
and now she's got an attack ad against her. So,
right.
viral doesn't necessarily equal it's the best thing in the world. So,
Totally, totally. That it could be a PR dream and a PR
oh,
nightmare,
total PR
personally
nightmare.
and professionally. So,
Yeah.
but that seems like the question I get all the time from clients or prospects. It's, we want to go viral. What can we do to go viral?
Yeah.
And it's really, I mean, you have to have an awesome something or the opposite, a
No, the
terrible
opposite.
something.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely have to have a community, a very engaged community.
Mhm.
It doesn't always happen that way. I mean, there's things that go viral that you're just like, how did this even go viral? But
Right.
definitely an engaged community helps. I did want to point out a conference that's coming to Orlando this year. So you're neck of the woods, Social Fresh.
Oh, I love Social Fresh. That's another one. Every time they come, everything, I can never go to it. So I have to see what the dates are. I
It's in
really want to be able
August,
to.
and it's in Orlando, in your neck of the woods. So
It is. Oh, awesome. Okay. Yeah, that's a great one. Jason Keith.
yes, Jason Keith.
Jason. Yes, yes, he's awesome. Trying to think of another one that I love. I love, it's called Social Pro now. It's run by
Oh,
SMX.
okay. Oh,
And
I heard of that.
and that one, I think there's one in June, and the one that I usually speak at is in November in Las Vegas. And then anything Moz related, I kind of come from the search and
Yeah.
social world, more of the search world that integrates social. So that's how I'm involved in all of these, more of the search marketing conferences that also blend in social, and any Moz conferences, even their webinars, everything is just spot on. So they do a lot of free stuff, free webinars, and I would just follow them and watch for, they have a lot of good advice on measurement, and they also offer lots of great tools too for
Well, and
measurement.
social tools, you spoke there last year, a year ago. I remember.
Oh yes,
Social
yes,
tools just wrapped up in Boston this week.
they're in Boston this week. That was
Yeah, they
great
just
too. I
wrapped
mean,
up, so.
it's unbelievable that we can have a conference dedicated to just tools, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I ran into, I met so many new people and learned about so many new tools. Neil Schaefer's conference, yeah. So that I would definitely recommend. They might have a virtual pass too.
I think they had a virtual pass, yeah, but they're just wrapped up, and they have one in San Francisco. And then this is really cool. I don't know if he's up, but he's planning like a social media cruise.
Oh, right. I
in
saw
the Mediterranean.
that.
I was like, that sounds like fun.
That sounds like fun. Yeah, that does. We'll have to check that out. Maybe we'll see everybody on the cruise.
I want to present there. I want to be a speaker there. That's
yeah, exactly.
Well, I think we're at 12:40, so.
Yes. So next week, we don't have a topic announced yet. Kathy and I will get together and we'll announce it and keep everybody posted if you want to meet back up with us on the Digital Dish.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Kathy.
Bye. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.